I lobbied the president hard to put it in Ohio, but he said these people behind us, these Alabamas, are just too powerful and too persuasive. And so it's in Alabama, but as Tommy said, this is exactly the right place for Space Force and Space Command. I think Americans ought to appreciate it and ought to appreciate the fact that you can't win the battle of the future unless you control the skies. The cyber security, the communications, the entire infrastructure of the battle in the 21st century will be in space.
The day started like any other hearing at the Rayburn Building in Washington, D.C. routine. The kind of governmental session that could be ignored by the casual observer. The long table was set up, microphones neatly placed, nameplates reflecting the soft overhead lights. A committee chair cleared his throat and began speaking through the usual script. Federal spending evaluations, budget allocation discussions, and all the other tedious matters that the public would glance over without a second thought.
When he was appointed to be the head of the FBI, was appointed by Donald Trump. Now, I will agree that I definitely take issue with a number of decisions that Donald Trump makes, especially when it comes to the people that he decides to appoint to very important positions, including this one, because I did have to make sure that I wasn't going crazy.
People were cooking dinner, working from home, or scrolling through their phones while the stream ran quietly in the background. It wasn't expected to blow up. It wasn't expected to be anything more than a few words lost in the noise of routine politics. But everything changed with one small, almost imperceptible shift in the room. At the center of it all, sitting at the panel, was Vice President J.D. Vance. His posture was perfect, his jacket crisp, and his tie straight.
So it's really an incredible operation, a testament to the power of American military. And I think what shows what can happen when you have that great American military in the hands of capable presidential leadership. What we did is we destroyed the Iranian nuclear program. I think we set that program back substantially, and we did it without endangering the lives of the American pilots.
He radiated confidence, the kind that comes with being a seasoned politician, used to the cameras and the whispers of the press. He wasn't nervous. He had been here before, many times, speaking about the same issues with the same rehearsed smile and practiced lines. He had come into this hearing expecting praise, ready to smooth over any concerns with his carefully crafted responses. He knew the drill. Behind him sat his staff, aides, and consultants, all poised and ready for the typical back and forth that these hearings often descended into.
That somebody in this building shouldn't do their jobs because these people are out of control. You're talking about arresting members of Congress? These masked agents are running around acting this way? This is not okay.
It was predictable. The reporters in the back of the room barely paid attention, scribbling notes half-heartedly, waiting for the inevitable routine that would drag on for hours. But there was someone in the room who had no intention of letting this be just another day at the office. Across the panel, Representative Jasmine Crockett sat quietly. She wasn't there to perform or posture. She barely moved, just flipped through her papers as if she had already seen the entire script unfold in front of her. To the casual observer, she might have seemed like just another politician, preparing for the inevitable speeches in question. But Jasmine was something different. Her calm was not a lack of engagement, but a deliberate strategy, a focus on purpose rather than spectacle. She didn't need to command attention. Her presence alone demanded it. Her eyes were steady, behind the simple glasses that had become a subtle trademark of her calm authority. She wasn't fidgeting with notes or tapping her fingers nervously like the others. She was waiting, listening, and observing.
For lending their credibility to it, I think all of us who have young kids at home just know that kids are healthier, they're happier, they do better when they're out there, they're being active, they're playing in sports, they're hanging out with their friends. I think all of us have thought at one point in the last few years that kids spend a little too much time on their phones, maybe a little bit too much time in front of the TV, and we just want kids to do better.
It was like watching someone poised to draw a line in the sand, waiting for the right moment. And if you were paying attention, you could feel the weight of that anticipation in the air. It wasn't loud. It wasn't a show. It was simply the quiet buildup of tension, a pressure cooker waiting for the right moment to release. As Vance finished giving a brief overview of the government's spending and allocation, he leaned forward, his voice confident. "My office has been extremely transparent with all allocations," he said, his hands flat on the table. His words hung in the air like a challenge.
It is the fact that they did not move forward and make sure that this man was put where he should have been put. Because the last time I checked as a criminal defense attorney, and Mr. Attorney General, you may have a different experience, but I never had a defendant that had 34 convictions for felonies and did not spend one day in jail.
A challenge Jasmine Crockett wasn't about to ignore. She waited. Her hands slowly rose into the air, and the room's attention shifted. Not fast, not with drama, but with a soft, deliberate motion. The chair acknowledged her, and Jasmine's voice broke the silence, steady and sure. "Thank you, Mr. Vice President," she said calmly. "I have a few questions for you, mostly regarding private contracting and communication records between your office and external advisory groups." Vance nodded, a practiced smile curling at the corners of his lips. "Of course, Representative. We've followed every required guideline. I'm happy to elaborate." His tone was polite, almost dismissive. He expected this. Routine questions, perhaps some mild inquiries into his administration spending. No big deal, but as Jasmine opened her folder, the room could feel something shift. She wasn't just asking questions to fill time. She was carefully choosing her words, poised to ask the one question that would force Vance to face the truth of what he'd been trying to avoid. "I appreciate your transparency," she said, her eyes never leaving his. "But I'd like to take a closer look at the communication records between your office and certain consultants. Specifically, I'm referring to fiscal recommendations from private consultants in Nevada and Minnesota. There seems to be some discrepancies in the records provided." The air in the room became thick. Vance's smile faltered, just slightly. He wasn't prepared for this, but he quickly recovered, his pen tapping rhythmically against the table, as if the nervousness he felt could be dismissed by the smallest gesture. But Jasmine wasn't finished. "I've reviewed these records," she continued, her tone as calm as ever, "and I've noticed some discrepancies. For instance, certain emails and meetings appear to have been left out of your office's release to this committee. Can you explain why that is?" Vance's posture stiffened. He wasn't the kind of politician who stumbled easily, but there was something about Jasmine's quiet intensity that made the air feel sharper. The question wasn't loud, but it hit with the force of a freight train. "I'm not sure what you're implying," Vance replied. His voice was still controlled, but there was something in his eyes now, uncertainty creeping into the edges of his polished exterior. Jasmine didn't answer immediately. She let the silence stretch, just long enough for the tension to build. It was almost as if she was allowing him to hang himself with his own words. She had already seen what others hadn't, and now she was just waiting for the right moment to expose it. After what seemed like an eternity, Jasmine spoke again, this time with the quiet force of someone about to drop a bomb. "Can you confirm, Mr. Vice President," she said, her voice calm and steady, "whether your office engaged with consultants through unregistered channels between March and August of this year?" At this, the room went still. Every head turned toward her, every eye glued to the exchange. Even the staff behind Vance shifted nervously in their seats. The camera, always alert, zoomed in on his face, sensing the shift before anyone else in the room had caught it. The vice president's composure cracked for just a moment, and everyone noticed it. "I'm not aware of any unregistered channels," Vance replied. His voice clipped, his confidence now beginning to waver. "But if you have evidence, I'm sure it will support our compliance." Jasmine, as always, was unflinching. She didn't take the bait. She didn't raise her voice. Instead, she simply placed a single sheet of paper in front of her, her hands slow and deliberate. No dramatic flourish, just the quiet movement of someone who knew exactly what she was doing.